everybody. You're all very welcome to this session, The Poetics of Unerasable Characters. I'm Rachel O'Dwyer, and I have the pleasure of responding to this performance by the artist Winnie soon. I'm sure Winnie needs very little introduction to many of you. Soon is a Hong Kong-born artist, coder, and researcher interested in the cultural implications of digital infrastructure. Their work addresses the wider power asymmetries, engaging with themes such as free and open source culture, coding otherwise, artistic technical manuals, digital censorship, and minor technology. Their work appears in museums, galleries, festivals, distributed networks, papers, and alternative written forms, including co-authored works such as Boundary Images, which was published in 2023, Fix My Code, 2021, and Aesthetic Programming, which was published in 2020. Winnie is the co-editor of the Software Studies book series, which is published with the MIT Press. She's co-PI of the research project Digital Activism and co-research lead of British Digital Art with the British Art Network. Artistically, Winnie has received the Golden Nika at Arts Electronica, in the Artificial Intelligence and Life Art category, the Expanded Media Award for Network Culture at Stuttgart Film Winter Festival for Expanded Media, the RWO 2019 Media Art Biennale Award, and the 26th and 17th IFVA Awards, Special Mention and Silver Award. Currently, they're the course leader at the Creative Computing Institute, University of the Arts London, and also Associate Professor, currently on leave at Aarhus University, and visiting researcher at the Centre of the Study of the Networked Image, CSNI, and London South Bank University. So I'd just like to welcome to the stage Winnie soon. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Oh, oh, oh. 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 Oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh. 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 Oh, 很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得又會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得又會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個週末都要在一起，說不完的話。今晚回家時看到的月亮很美，難得也會有覺得做人類很快樂的時刻。很久沒體驗到交新朋友的感覺了，太久違了，整個Visible time, 4 minutes. Visible time, 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Visible time, 13 hours, 9 minutes, 35 seconds. Visible time, 24 hours, 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Visible time, 143 hours, 59 minutes, 25 seconds. Today, I want to talk about my artwork, Unerasable character series, that has been exhibited in various places. The series contains 3 parts, or 3 artworks, part 1, 2, and 3. So these three artworks display text or characters based on content that has been censored on Weibo, one of the biggest social media in China. So part one contains a DIY binder book and a stack of paper, as you can see on the floor next to the book. The book is based on the 1 year data that has been censored and fed into a machine learning model to produce human unreadable text. The second one is a projection based on the last 12 months censored data to visualize the visibility of the erasure over time. And the third one, which is a web page based on 3 months censored data when the COVID-19 outbreak was started in China. So this Unerasable series explores the politics of erasure and the temporality of voices within the context of digital authoritarianism. It presents the sheer scale of unheard voices by technically examining and culturally reflecting the endlessness and its wider consequences of censorship that is implemented through technological platforms and infrastructure. So through exhibiting the work, many people ask me, what is the censored content? I guess you get a sense just now, right? And how I made it. So I think it's good to use a diagram to briefly talk about how this series is being done. So in a nutshell, my project relied on a research project on your left-hand side, a research project called Weibo Scope, which is a system constantly follows Weibo accounts with more than 1,000 followers, and the posts are frequently being censored. Right? So there's kind of like a deep system going on in the background. To closely monitor when the content is being posted and constantly check if the post is still available. Right? So once the system detects the post is disappeared, then Weibo Scope will further check with Weibo via an API call, application programming interface, with Weibo, the system. And if the return status return as permission denied. So then this will be regarded as censored data. I mentioned earlier the series contains 3 parts, the 3 artworks. So now it's on your right-hand side. So the book contains more than 54,000 censored posts during 2021 to 2022. And the projections you saw in the previous pictures contains a daily update bot to fetch the erased data, containing more than 100,000 posts. And the last one, which is a web-based web page, contains only around 2,000 erased posts that were related to COVID-19 in just only 3 months' time. So this is sort of just to give you a sense of the overview of what you are hearing just now. So scholar Yung Au wrote about this particular series of work. So she mentions the characters shown in the Unerasable character series, while placed on center stage, is in a way meaningless. They are lifted from their sensitive context and abstracted, where the sum of the extensive labor of censorship become nonsensical. We are left guessing the answers to unseen parts of the equations. Who do these words belong to? Why were they condemned to erasure? And how do they fit into larger machinery of remembering and forgetting? So today I want to zoom in the version 1, which is a DIY book made with cheap materials, very cheap. So this is a smaller version of the book. So where anyone can easily remake these binding tools containing A4 paper, right? Binding wood here, wing nuts, flash washer, and also the long headless screw as well. Although the book contains more than 2,500 pages, I do not really able to read the erased text that has been trained and predicted via a machine learning program. My question to this artwork, is this a forbidden book? So doing the work of Unerasable Characters 1, I have community in mind, in which I want to think about how erasure might be related to the agency of remembering, forgetting, and resistance. The form of the book and the key element of the series, which is white paper, is inspired by blank paper, white paper protest movement and revolution that we see across the globe. Right? I see this through TV media, like many of you. I think I saw protesters putting up white paper without any words that are written in, but they got arrested. So this happened in Hong Kong, in China, in UK, in Russia, and in Spain, to name just a few. Right? So I want us to take a moment to think about, first, what were their feelings of holding a blank paper? Right? Secondly, what are we facing nowadays in various political climate or regimes? I hope every one of you right now having a blank paper on your hand. Right? A simple blank paper is a global symbol against censorship. Right? Holding a blank paper also means the needs of self-censorship. It is about control, it is about struggle, it is about fear, it is about the desire to voice. A blank paper refers to the in-betweenness of something that is invisible, something that is visible, something that is legal, something that is not legal, something that is erasable, something that is unerasable. Right? Holding a blank paper also means it is risk-taking. Right? But it is also a new, fluid form of reading. It's a short one. But to end my talk, my part of the talk, before having a conversation with Rachel, I would like to bind a low-tech book together with you all. Right? I want us to take a moment of silence, a moment of attention, a moment of concern, a moment of care, a moment of solidarity, a moment of experience, and a moment of together. So what I would like you to do is to hold your paper, to feel those moments that I mentioned. Right? Once you are done with this silence, right, I want you to pass the paper to the end of the row, and our volunteers will come and collect the paper, and we will help to, me and Rachel together will also help binding our desires together. So let's take a moment of silence. When you are ready, you can also pass your paper to the one next to you towards the end. So if you feel you are ready, so please pass on and our volunteers will come and collect it.
You ready for me to come up and give you a
Sure,
hand?
sure.
Okay. So where do you want me?
Maybe wait a little bit when they come.
Do you want me to sit down beside you? Or?
I don't know how to. That's difficult. We need to stack it.
Can I give them a...
Thank you. How to make this? This is an interesting intervention. So maybe I hold this and then you put the paper here.
Sure. So you just want it in between the two,
Yeah.
like that much?
Yeah.
Okay.
This would be good to add as a cover, maybe.
I feel like some people just naturally like this one.
Maybe we can also fit it in as well.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna put it in. I just want to. Makes me think of my son's homework. They're given like pieces of paper, and it's always they come home in like little balls in his bag. It does sort of feel kind of amazing to handle the pieces of paper.
Yeah. I did this before, almost a year ago in Australian Contemporary Art Museum, where because it was less audience, then everyone sort of come to the stage and then queue up, a long queue.
Yeah.
And it's like a ritual, in a way people think about and very serious, everyone at that time.
So did everybody then like hand you their piece of paper
Yes,
individually?
Yeah. So they don't hand it to me, they just put it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, for me, like holding the pieces of paper, I don't know, I'm kind of wondering what did each person, and I guess I was watching the faces of everybody as well in the audience. And it was quite moving because everybody seemed to be really, contemplating what was going to be, what was on their piece of paper.
So this long school can hold right now around 3,000 pages of paper. But according to my publisher, they said you can actually have much longer screw, and then the paper stack can go up, and you can also flip it as well. So it's kind of a very nice design.
So is this a particular kind of like paper binding technique then, or like
It's something that Royal Publishing invented this because I went to them with this problem.
Okay.
I have a lot of pages.
Yeah.
But I want the audience, in an exhibition, that they can flip the book, like naturally,
Yeah.
but how can I do it? And also something that is removable, something that is easier for other people to fork it, to remake it, to think about what the archives or content that they want to preserve, they want to remember, or they want to forget in a more distributed manner.
Is that all our paper? Any others? No?
But we can always, remove it later on and then, add more.
Okay. Will we get our swan in?
We can put it here maybe as a cover. I think it's a
Okay.
nice cover.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind. This is a cover.
Do you want your water, by the way, for
Huh?
conversation? Do you want your water for conversation?
Oh, it's okay.
You sure?
Yeah, thanks. So maybe you help with this one?
Yeah?
Oh,
So
yeah.
what'll I do?
Oh,
You
yeah.
want me to screw it down?
Yeah.
So I had a flower press when I was little, just like this. It's gotten a bit stiff.
I should have bought a shorter one. Getting there. Thank you for your patience.
We have a lot of time anyway, don't we? Oh, sorry.
You are so fast. So it needs to be very tight.
Okay, yeah. I just
Yeah.
wanted to wait for it in case I
Okay, getting there,
made it
getting there,
difficult
getting
for
there.
you to.
Okay,
Yeah? Okay, now I'll
okay.
tighten it.
I think it's tight enough.
Yeah?
Yeah. All right. So just want to say thank you, everyone. And this book will be placed in the reception area where you get the pass. And hope you all will have a good read of the book. And just to say, like, the last words is like really acknowledgement of this project.
Grab my water, Winnie. Give me one sec. I'm just going to grab my water. It's
Okay,
just there.
okay, thanks. So, Weibo Scope research project led by Dr. Fu Kenghua, and also the binding tools, Oli and Joey from Royal.se. And And I think this is quite important to acknowledge people, projects, institutions in supporting and make visible about the concerns of human rights issue, including Transmediale in Germany, Museum of Contemporary Art Taipei in Taiwan, Mashudu International Art Science Festival in Japan, Ars Electronica in Austria, Australian Centre for Contemporary Art in Australia, online, the New River Journal, as well as Hong Kong, the Microwave Festival, IFEA. I'm not sure whether this work can be exhibited again there. Let's see, we'll see how it goes. But thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Nice. Yeah, so I think we have about half an hour for conversations.
Yeah.
We might even be able to have some time to open things out to the audience. But I guess I wanted to begin by asking you, and you gestured to it a little bit in your presentation, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about the blank paper protests, a little bit about the context for the work, first of all. So you said that you made the work in response to the sort of white paper revolution, which has taken place in a number of contexts, but I suppose principally the white paper protests in Hong Kong during COVID. So what was it about that particular movement then?
I'm not sure whether this is something like a response to white paper protest or movement, but I guess it's the time when I had the concept of having the book. It's also the time when I saw, first of all, like in Hong Kong, that's the first incident that I saw when national security law in Hong Kong was implemented, and everyone is so scared about voicing their concern on the street. And even there were moments of time Hong Kong people were not allowed to protest on the streets as well, right? So many creative people, think of different ways to voice their concern, right? So that's why, I guess that's why I haven't really know them, but I guess that's the reason why they hold this white paper in a shopping mall, to get the attention from press, but also from audience, right? But at the same time, the police, of course, also, I don't know how they actually really able to see the words there. So they also like to arrest, the people. And then turns to in China, which is related to the COVID-19 cases. They had a hard lockdown, right? And a lot of information, which I also look at the sensor data that I have collected for 3 months, especially like the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak, which was way earlier than in the European context, right? So they were also like, they see like there's certain control on social media, that they do not know what is COVID, what is the problem and why, and vaccine, like how, right? So they also initiate this white paper movement and became viral, right? A lot of people from other parts of the world also support this movement, post like the people holding the blank paper and then take a screenshot, take a photo, and then put up on social media as a way of like, building the solidarity, right? But of course, also other situation in the UK because of the monarchy, the Queen died at that time, but then also the war between Russia and Ukraine as well, right? So these are sort of like, I don't know, like, how do you feel as well, I feel I understand, I feel there's a strong desire to speak, right? But I also think there's a strong fear at the same time, right? There's a certain kinds of risk, because as you saw this image, right, is immediately challenged by police as well, right? What you are doing here, show me your papers, what to show, it's a blank paper, right?
And yeah, I guess that sort of related then to another question I had, which was, you know, often we sort of talk about these contexts within transmedially, you know, like we're having conversations about things like censorship elsewhere, and yet this year, you know, we're sort of speaking about censorship, and yet we're also, you know, speaking about it within a context where our speech is also being censored, which is possibly as well why, you know, there seemed to be maybe a different kind of an atmosphere as well in the room, you know, when people were, you know, in engaging in this exercise, you know, that, you know, we're not sort of, we're not speaking in a sort of a more sort of a removed or an academic way about censorship over there or censorship somewhere else, but actually right now policing our own speech in the context of having received a document that clearly says what we cannot say while on stage. But you said something to me really interesting just before, well, that was very interesting to me just before we came on. And, you know, if you're comfortable with elaborating on this, I'd really like to know what you meant. And that was that you said, or something to this effect anyway, you said, I'm always doing self-censorship. And I guess I wondered, what did you mean by that? If you're comfortable.
Yeah, sure. This is a heavy question.
Sorry.
It's okay. So I guess I've been constantly thinking, what does it mean by censorship? I've been working on this topic for quite a while. I think a couple of years ago, I did a presentation as transmedially as well about unerasable image, which is kind of related to censorship in general, right? So there are different perspectives in looking into self-censorship. Some people might think we shouldn't have self-censorship. We should be able to still find ways to say what we want to say, right? But I guess it's for me, over the years, I started to realize I'm actually constantly doing self-censorship in different contexts. Even though I'm now speaking to you, when I prepare the slides, when I'm doing teaching, when I'm just in the corridor talking to the students. So self-censorship, which means you constantly have fear in terms of you are not quite sure whether what you say is appropriate, whether someone will spy on you, whether someone will screenshot your social media, or whether you can, you know, I say something that is not appropriate in a way that I can't go back to Hong Kong, for example. So in a way, I haven't really go back for the last 4.5 years because of this fear. And every time when I exhibiting the work, and then some people, especially from Hong Kong or from China, they approach me and I also ask, have you been back to Hong Kong, right? And usually I will have another question, ask them, do you think I can go back? I want to know as well. I wish there's a list, you know, I wish there's a blacklist or whatever, make it clear that whether I'm doing something across the line or not, right? But not just only this, right? Like, what I mean by fear and struggle in a way is also really fundamental, related to, like, how do you feel about having the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, what kind of values that you are subscribed to, but also at the same time as an academic and also as an artist, right? So where is the line in a way that I can speak in a way that my family are safe, right? Put in this way, yeah. So, and I also met a scholar, actually, Fu Kenghua in Copenhagen before, and we talked about this topic as well. And then he said, like, oh, you are in Europe now, you don't have to worry, you know. You can say anything as long as you are not going back to work, right? And I said, well, but I still have friends and family there, so I'm not sure whether this is too much, you know. So we have this sort of sharing. So just to give you a few examples, to give you a sense of why and how, you know, and so on.
Yeah. No, I think that's really, really helpful, because you know, sometimes there's a sort of critique about like political art in some ways, that it's kind of a like, you know, like a liar's poker sort of thing, where which I think it's like Brian Holmes's critique that, you know, this art is, it's sort of like just gesturing to the political, and that if it actually becomes political, it sort of moves outside of the artistic space into something like social activism or social movement. But that's, you know, in itself, I think, a really kind of a privileged discourse, where actually, you know, if you are an artist who's working in a space where your voice is censored, then that is very much not the case. You know?
But it's also doing this kind of work for me is also a process of thinking about what is censorship, right?
Yeah.
And how this kind of censorship in the authoritarian regimes are different from like in the West currently happening, and how is it different from like algorithmic filtering, like recommendation engines, where is, you know, what's the intention of having this censorship? Is silencing individual voices? Where's the power actually goes? Is it goes to a particular political party? What is the rationale behind of having censorship? I think that's helped me to think about like different kinds of censorship, because there are also other discourse. People also relate censorship to moderation, right? Moderate, for example, toxic behaviors online, right?
Yeah.
So, but this is a different story, right? Like,
Yeah.
because it's also creating harm for other people, right? So in a way, I feel this notion of censorship, there are many ways to unpack and think through, and doing this kind of artwork, for me, is think about this question, but at the same time, for me, it's a healing process as well. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for me, this work was so interesting, because there's such a strong like through line to this quite analog piece, and your previous work, which is dealing, you know, very much with questions around like algorithmic obfuscation, you know. And I have a question here which I haven't quite managed to articulate, so I don't know why I think I'm going to manage it now that I'm on stage, but it's got something to do with this idea of like politics where you don't have a voice. But I'll have a go. So I teach a class with my students back in Ireland, which is about like art and tactical media, and one of the classes is it's about like Rancière and like the distribution of the sensible. And I showed them this video. I showed them a clip from the Planet of the Apes, where it's a clip where, you know, Caesar the ape says no. So I'm showing them that to sort of show them this moment where like somebody who doesn't have a voice suddenly shows that they have a voice, you know. So it's like, yeah, someone who isn't seen to be like a political subject suddenly has a voice, and he says no. And it's like, you know, in that moment sort of politics happens, because he's sort of, you know, he's sort of speaking, but these sort of like blank paper, these sort of protests they're a different kind of politics. They're sort of a politics where, you know, the person is sort of refusing to speak, or there's sort of a demand that isn't being articulated. And it's a different kind of politics. It's like it's a politics of like refusing to speak or something. I don't know. You know, what is that though?
I'm also,
it's definitely something.
Yeah, when you are talking about voicing,
yeah,
I'm also thinking about whether the space, is it the space to voice?
Yeah.
Is it a given? Is it a space that is given?
Yeah.
Or is it is a space that you have to constantly fight for it?
Yeah.
You know, there's a difference, right? And of course, it's also related to different privileges,
yes,
as well, and different forms of struggles, right?
Yeah.
And if you ask me, I feel it is not given.
No, it's not. No.
It's constantly you have to think about whether there's an audience,
yeah,
to listen, and whether it makes sense to voice, and what to voice, right? But even though you have the desire to voice, right, it doesn't mean that there's a space for you, right? Just like the censored content happening on the web.
I actually I just thought of an example there where there's an essay written in 1984 by a Chinese cultural theorist called Ray Chow. I can't remember what the essay is called, but at one point in it she talks about teenagers listening to Walkmans, and how, you know, so they were being forced to like listen to these like communist songs that went like, you know, I walk and sing of Chairman Mao and everything, and she like looked at how this kind of form of like refusing to listen to those songs and instead like listening to your Walkman was a kind of politics. And so she sort of says this politics, it's not like speaking, like politics can also be listening. It can be, or refusing to listen to this and instead listening to my Walkman, you know. I don't know, maybe in that sense also like this kind of refusing to voice could be politics as well, or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Refusing to articulate the demand, refusing to, I don't know.
I agree, but also on the other hand I think maybe also important to think about other ways of voicing, like what you say, like refusal is one of, right? So when I work on this work, which is the last, although it's called Unerasable Characters 1, but actually was the last one that I made across the series. I was also, as I mentioned, I had this kind of community in mind, and also thinking about there's no kind of universal centralized database, you know, that sort of storage of voices. It really depends on how we make use of different things, different network, in order to have a kind of distributed voice, and have the agency to think about what to archive, what to distribute, what matters, and how we can regain the possibility to form alliance and solidarity, because it's quite difficult, especially in a Chinese context. I read also one of the articles mentioned about censorship in China. It's not about like the politics there. Wasn't really about silencing criticism of the state, but it's more about minimizing the potential actions, the potential collective actions, right? So because maybe there's a misconception that, okay, you cannot criticize A, B, and C, and D, and E, right? But it's more about there's a possibility when you form a group, there's a possibility you make actions, and some party people, they don't want to see this is going to happen, right? So then how can we imagine different forms of togetherness?
Maybe this sort of relates to what you were saying there about archiving, but the examples that we're looking at on screen obviously are sort of individual like pieces of paper. Why are you choosing to put these together into a book?
Yeah.
Or binding them together in a book?
Yeah.
Like why the book form?
Yeah. For me, book is about knowledge production, right? And knowledge production is political. If you think about the institution, library, is a very political institution. A library in Denmark, for example, or a library in Hong Kong, a library in China is very different in terms of what kind of books that can be appear, what kind of books can be distributed, can be borrowed, right? And what kind of books are regarded as banned, hidden, forbidden, right? Because also in the last couple of years, why I had this idea of book and knowledge was also influenced by some of the incidents happened back then in Hong Kong. Because you probably know Hong Kong is a colonial city, right? And at one point in the last couple of years, the official libraries, that we have a lot of libraries in Hong Kong, and they have to revisit the list of books that are displayed on the shelves. And especially after the national security law implemented, there were a lot of books that were being taken down. And also, of course, in China, you also cannot carry certain kinds of books as well. Right, so I think.
What kind of books, as an example?
So, for example, you criticize the CCP party, right? Or about COVID, for example, right? This is also a very sensitive topic. While in Europe, because the time when I made this work, I was in Denmark. I was living in Denmark, so it's a very, how the society in Denmark handle COVID. Of course, it's very different from how I saw in other parts of the world, right? I'm not saying like a comparison, but I mean like that I related back to the context of the book. I felt knowledge production is important. Institution is political subject, and how we make knowledge. Citation, for example, because I was in a workshop in the last couple of days, we talk about radical referencing, right? It's also part of knowledge production as well, so it matters.
And I mean, your whole practice is very much engaged as well. Like, as you said, this is one of a number of pieces around this idea of unerasable characters, and your whole practice is really, really engaged with coding as well as a sort of aesthetic and political practice. And I guess I was hoping that you might actually talk us through a little bit some of the processes that you're engaged with for the gathering of data from is it Weibo, I guess?
That's the left-hand side one is the Weibo scope that I briefly mentioned was a system which is, I feel so relieved. This is actually a research project in Hong Kong University. Right. So in a way, what I see is if this project is safe, I'm safe. This is my reference point. So Weibo scope is a package as a research project. It's like a digital humanities.
So could anybody use Weiboscope to kind of scrape data from Weibo, or
this is a very interesting question.
Okay.
Why? Because everything was open in the last 8 years, including there's open data set on one particular year, and also the website and so on, right? But then 2 years ago, because I also know the person behind as well, so 2 years ago they have decided not to make it so explicit. So in a way you can still access the link if you have a specific link to it.
Okay.
But it is not something like when you type Weiboscope, it's like everything there. So it's not. So it's kind of like semi-open.
Okay.
But the Fu Kenghua and also his team are interested in really the content analysis of censorship, like what are the keywords that are being most censored, what is the trend right now in the last 2 years, what kind of data related to COVID-19,
Yeah.
So it's a very sophisticated research project that has been done for a long time. And not just only Weibo scope, they have been also doing WeChat scope with a similar kind of motif, working on censorship. So they have been doing like a lot of hard work in terms of the system that following a lot of sampling Weibo accounts and constantly debriefing, every couple of seconds, to check, Rachel, your post is still here, is this still here, Once I see like the post that you have, then suddenly disappear, then we'll have to ask Weibo, hey, why this post is disappear, right? So there were a lot of things happening in the Weibo scope, and they have published widely as well in academic journals, right? So for my part, it's more like doing web scraping, because I know they have a website. They also do not want to particularly cater my work to use this, but we sort of know each other, what we are doing, and then maybe worth mentioning for particularly on this particular work. So originally it was like 1 year data from June 30, 2021 to June 30, 2022, right? So I collect more than 54,000 posts that were being censored, right? And but when we kind of all know, right? Like what we are looking at social media is kind of a filter system. We kind of know it, right? But we might not able to visualize the scale of this filtering and censorship. So what does it mean by 54,000 posts? What that means, right? So, and I want to materialize it as like a stack of paper, which is quite high. For this, like it's full of data, the raw data, so to speak. And then I put these data into machine learning and then train for like a week. And then it's output predictive text. As a way, at the beginning, I was like thinking about, can I train sensitive text? What is mean by sensitive text? Can machine learning able to predict these are sensitive text, right? But of course, ultimately, when I run the program and so on, then I find like I cannot read the text at all, even though I can read Chinese, right? So probably the sample size is too small, but it's also there are a lot of different other languages incorporated in the input data as well, right?
Okay.
Like the link, sometimes a little bit of English,
Okay.
and I also saw like some Japanese text as well, right?
Okay.
So in a way, it becomes a book that is what I say that is not human readable, because I can't understand it. But sometimes it's quite funny because when I exhibit the work, a lot of the people who actually use Google Translator and then translate the text and see whether it makes sense, right? So, but that is also the idea when I exhibit the work, especially in the non-Chinese context, I would say. So whether the audience can able to understand Chinese characters is not my main goal, Like I want, in a way, the audience can able to feel the scale, able to feel the materiality of data, as well as the temporality of visibility, to think about why they are visible and in this kind of scale as well.
Yeah.
Maybe this is something like the horrors of erasure. Right?
Yeah.
To tie with the theme of transmediality. I mean.
So I know we didn't actually plan for questions from the audience because we didn't really think we'd have as much Q&A time, but we do have 5 minutes, don't we? Or, well, we have a few minutes. So I don't even know if I'm kind of looking to the side to see, do we have a roaming mic? Because if we did, do we? Yeah, so I think we do have time, right, to maybe take 2 questions, if there are any questions from the audience. Are there any questions from the audience? I just thought, or even responses to the performance? Because if there are, I think we have time for at least one. Oh, somebody over here.
And also Helen as well.
Oh, and Helen. Yeah, sorry.
Hello.
And just one over there as well. Hi, Helen.
Hi. Thanks for the amazing performance and presentation. I want to know how Winnie is thinking about archiving the project so it doesn't get erased.
This is a very interesting question in a way, because for me, I'm interested in this tension about something that is being erased, but at the same time it's not, right? So on the one hand, I think Weibo Scope also doing this job in terms of like having the data stored somewhere that I don't know, probably not in Hong Kong, I don't know where they are. But I think as an artist, I'm also interested because, sometimes as an artist, when you see something that is, this data set, we need to think about how to expose it, or how to exploit it, or how to make it visible, and as a way to generate more critical inquiry about this. So all the archiving for me is not just only about archiving the data itself, but also archiving the system change over time as well, right? So all the source code, everything is open source, and you can also see the iteration, why I have changed the code from time to time, because there's something wrong here. The site broke down, or because of the data original source there's something wrong there that I need to modify my code in order to make changes. Yeah.
I think we had one more question over this side. Yes, yourself there.
Hi, I have a very simple question, not very profound, but I was curious about why did they cancel the post with Like what's wrong with it? Like I'm very puzzled by it.
I want to know too, actually. So I guess it's what I'm showing you all in a way I cannot make sense as well. I also want to show the ridiculous of like something just really mundane can also be censored. But censorship is a complex topic, you know. It's not just literally about the words there, because it's also about the context. What is actually happening right now? What is the date, for example? Particular date is regarded as more sensitive, even though the word like today, it is not sensitive today, but it might be sensitive in a certain date as well. And it's just only sensitive for particular dates too. So in that sense, it's a highly complex situation for analyzing why this particular post, but also a lot of posts that are being censored are related to advertising as well. But also of course, it's political, but also even for the second one that I perform this text is also very personal as well. You know, you're just actually meeting a new friend, right? But this is, you know, you have no clue really. I also want to know as well.
Yeah, I couldn't understand why a lot of them were censored, you know. It's really curious.
Yeah.
Okay. Winnie, thank you so much,
Thank you so much.
for
Thank
your
you for all
performance and
for your
everyone's
participation.
participation as well.
Thank you.